Mr. Rogers is coming to our school tomorrow.
Mr. Rogers?
Oh, I adore Mr. Rogers.
Hey, it's Janelle Waz, and welcome back to another video. Avengers Infinity War, the most ambitious crossover in history? No. Arthur meets Mr. Rogers. While not the first PBS show to feature another show for an episode, the Arthur episode, Arthur Meets Mr. Rogers, combines two of PBS's most beloved shows, and two shows that had quite the long run, and also two meme gold mines. Now, I'm sure most of the people watching this know about Arthur, but for you young'uns out there, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was hosted by Fred Rogers. He was a kindly older man who welcomed viewers into his home, sang songs, put sweaters on, changed his shoes, and discussed the various points of growing up in a calm manner. It wasn't a flashy show, but the genuineness of its host earned a spot in the hearts of generations of children. The show started in 1968 and was still running when Arthur was in its second season, leading to a crossover episode. So, what happens when these two giants meet? Well, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood where we can learn to work and play and get along with each other. This is Arthur Meets Mr. Rogers.
It's a beautiful day here at Arthur's house, a neighborly stay here at Arthur's.
The episode starts with Arthur running towards his group of friends in what appears to be autumn attire? No, seriously, this is a show where the characters mostly wear the same things day in and day out. Here we have an alternate outfit for colder weather. I kind of appreciate this. Time does pass in the cartoon world. But anyways, Arthur has news. Two newses.
Mr. Rogers is coming to our school tomorrow.
Oh, hell yeah. Mr. Rogers, a king among memes. The one that tells you that you're unique and special and takes you to cool places and...
Mr. Rogers? Do they think we're babies or something?
You better shut your mouth, Muffy. Well, since news item number 1 was shot down, Arthur says never mind about news item number 2. And what was news item number 2? Mr. Rogers is staying at his house.
You look a little sad, Arthur.
Maybe we could sing a song and cheer him up. No.
Let the man sing, Arthur. So the dilemma is set up for the episode. Arthur's friends think Mr. Rogers is for babies, an erroneous opinion, by the way, and he's staying at Arthur's house. How embarrassed. Oh, who am I kidding? It's an honor for Mr. Rogers to grace your house. What you should be saying is, Mr. Rogers, you bring honor to my house.
Your presence brings my house honor.
The title card comes and goes, and we cut to Arthur talking to his mom in the kitchen.
Maybe you think you're too old for Mr. Rogers now.
False. You're never too old for Mr. Rogers. Stop lying to the boy. Now, some backstory is given as to why Mr. Rogers is staying at the Reed home. He didn't just turn up off the street and ask to stay in their home. Although if anyone could do that, it would be Mr. Rogers. It turns out that Mr. Rogers was once neighbors with Arthur's mom, and that's why he's staying in their home.
Wow, that must have been a long time ago.
Arthur decides to go into full damage control mode to contain the information that Mr. Rogers is staying with them.
What's the point of having Mr. Rogers stay at your house? Shh. If you don't tell anybody.
Exactly. Look, I don't always agree with DW, but yes, like, if Mr. Rogers was staying at my house, I'd be spreading that all over the place. Yeah, Mr. Rogers is staying at my house. He's eating my food, he's sitting on my couch, he's using my bathroom, I'm even selling one of his sweaters on eBay. He said I could if I cut him in on the deal. PBS has nothing on fundraising like I do.
The 9th rule of acquisition clearly states that opportunity plus instinct equals profit.
And now before you say, but what about Muffy? Forget about Muffy. She may be rich, but does she have a legit celebrity staying at her house? I rest my case. Back to the episode, Mr. Rogers appears from around the corner. Apparently he wants to mail some postcards to some friends. Yeah, this was the 90s and people still did that. Arthur, of course, imagines the worst case scenario. Mr. Rogers singing a delightful song and his jerk friends laughing at a man living his best life. So Arthur won't let Mr. Rogers leave the house and yanks the postcards out of his hand to mail them. I'm pretty sure this just turned into a hostage situation. Arthur is holding Mr. Rogers hostage! And of course, Arthur's cover is almost blown when he literally bumps into his friend Prunella, and she sees the postcards are signed Fred. I don't know a Fred. I know a Mr. Rogers, though. Arthur, in a panicked state, comes up with the most believable explanation he can muster. He's changing his name.
I'm sending out these postcards to try out new names. Fred is just one. Do you like it? How about Casper?
That's a peddling.
Upon return, Arthur has subconsciously adopted the habits of his captive.
What am I doing?
Well, turning into the coolest man in the neighborhood. DW decides to bust Mr. Rogers out of his hostage situation, insisting on taking him for a walk around the neighborhood. Arthur objects, claiming that someone will recognize him, so clearly he needs a disguise.
I don't think I need a disguise.
Oh, hold up. Why is Mr. Rogers balding? He never had his hair cut that way. Of course, things could be worse.
Tell Arthur Reed that he'll never eat lunch in this town again.
Mr. Rogers resists the idea of putting on a disguise, but Arthur has a plan, one that will surely maintain his cover.
That certainly is a very impressive statue.
Oh, sure, nobody's gonna notice an 8-year-old bearded boy. You'd be better off just letting Mr. Rogers walk to the mailbox.
A speedy delivery.
And the disguise wasn't even that good in the first place because Arthur's friend Buster noticed Mr. Rogers anyway.
It's Mr. Rogers, and he's with 2 of the 7 dwarves.
Good plan, Arthur. So they're running away from Buster, almost running into the school bullies from Arthur's school. Although to be fair, if anyone could show school bullies the error of their ways, it's Mr. Rogers.
You're still yourself inside.
Arthur ends up leading Mr. Rogers down a dark alley. Far away from the muggers, I'm sure.
Garbage? You wanted to show Mr. Rogers people's garbage?
Garbage. Dirty garbage.
And because going down a dark alley offers little in the way of an escape route, Buster catches up to them.
What's your name?
I forget.
It's alright, kid. One tends to forget one's name in the presence of greatness. Arthur attempts to swear Buster to secrecy, and Buster's first instinct, of course, is to blab to the first friends he sees.
Hey, you're right about me. I cannot keep a secret.
Meanwhile, inside the ice cream parlor shop, noticing a bearded 8-year-old,
Arthur looks quite distinguished with facial hair.
A fine, full, dignified beard.
Prunella observes that Arthur's been acting weird lately, and her older sister, Rubella, who fancies herself a psychic, jumps to the most logical conclusion.
Zombies! Your friend Arthur is under a hypnotic spell.
Since when do zombies have hypnotic powers? Later on, Mr. Rogers is enjoying dinner with the Reeds. And Buster.
Does King Friday ever get in the trolley and come out to see you?
Oh, brother.
Look, I'm just saying we never saw King Friday and Mr. Rogers in the same room together. Rubella, Prunella, and Brain decide to do a little peeping tomfoolery, and I'm sorry, do they not see Mr. Rogers through the window? Brain comes up with the idea to ask Arthur if he needs help with his homework, and when Arthur says he doesn't, they immediately assume the worst. Well, considering you couldn't do something simple like flipping the switch on a computer to fix it, Arthur's probably better off without your help, Brain.
There was this one time on your show, you learned to dance, and I learned it too.
Yeah.
Then make it come back, huh?
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers senses something is afoot with Arthur and tries to talk to him.
Excuse me.
Okay, I just ragged on Rubella, Prunella, and Brain just a minute ago, but is Mr. Rogers completely oblivious in this episode too? He doesn't even look to see what Arthur's doing and maybe seeing this happening? What is going on with this episode? Nosy neighbor Mrs. Tibble notices something suspicious going on next door and uses her corded phone to call the cops. Again, kids, this was the 90s. Corded phones were still a thing.
In the long
Sing it, Mr. Rogers!
There are stops along the way.
And of course, because of one conclusion jumped to by a character even less helpful than Deanna Troi and one corded phone call, the police and the 6 o'clock news show up and bust up Arthur's hostage situation.
It was a strange day in the neighborhood when Mr. Rogers came for a visit.
Okay, that was pretty good. Give that man a raise! Later that evening, Mr. Rogers finally confronts Arthur about what's been bothering him. And Arthur has a nice heart-to-heart conversation with Mr. Rogers, and it's all very well done. Mr. Rogers listens to Arthur and really tries to understand what he's going through, which is honestly more than what Arthur's mom did at the start of the episode. And you know what? I think that's part of the charm of Mr. Rogers. He was a great listener with a lot of empathy. Even though Mr. Rogers was a guy on the TV, somehow that understanding came through the TV, and I think a lot of people, even those outside his usual audience of preschoolers, connected with that. He comes across as genuine and caring, and that's not something you can fake.
It's you I like.
Arthur finally confides in Mr. Rogers that he's worried about what the kids at school will think about the fact that Mr. Rogers is staying at his house.
You don't want them to think you're a little kid anymore.
Yeah, I mean, no offense.
Interestingly enough, Mr. Rogers has said in interviews that while preschoolers were his main audience, many older people also watched his show.
What's your age range, would you think, who watch the show?
Mostly preschoolers, but I hesitate to say that because there's so many older people who watch.
Absolutely.
You know.
Which would make Arthur's worrying about being a little kid a little moot, but whatever. For the story, I'll allow it. Mr. Rogers recognizes that Arthur might feel like he's too old for certain things and points something important out to him.
Real friends don't make fun of real friends. And your friends seem like real friends. They all seem to be concerned about you.
I don't know. Did you see how Buster and Brain both bailed on Arthur after Buster broke the computer? But Arthur decides to look on the bright side of things.
Well, at least nobody in my class watches the news.
Arthur, your house was on TV last night.
Well, because his house was on the 6 o'clock news, the kids start giving Arthur the third degree.
Did he change his shoes whenever he came in?
Did he bring picture?
We'll all watch together how people make toilets.
Mr. Rogers, he's just for babies.
You better watch your mouth, Binky.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Yeah, well, why do you know all the lyrics to his song, Binky?
You must be Binky Barnes.
Look how Mr. Ratburn looks! See? Nobody, and I mean nobody, makes fun of Mr. Rogers. Nobody. And then Binky changes his tune.
Can I have your autograph?
It's you I like.
He then gives Arthur street cred for having Mr. Rogers stay at his house, and then asks Arthur for his autograph. You see, Arthur, Mr. Rogers staying in your house is the ticket to instant popularity. This is how you should have handled it.
Did you really stay at Arthur's house yesterday?
I think Arthur can answer that, Binky.
Damn straight he did. He was eating my food, sitting on my couch, using my bathroom. He put his sweaters and shoes in my front closet. He stayed a full day at my house, and it was amazing.
Whoa!
And that was Arthur Meets Mr. Rogers. Some leaps in logic, but not a bad episode. The format is more in line with a cartoon episode rather than an episode of Mr. Rogers. Well, duh, Arthur is a cartoon. But it still maintains the pathos of an episode of Mr. Rogers. It tackles the idea of growing up, not wanting the other kids to think you're still a little kid, not wanting to be laughed at. These are all things that everyone went through growing up. But in the end, it's our friends, our real friends, that are going to care about you and that aren't going to shame you in front of everyone. And that's something anyone, kid or adult, should remember. That, and Mr. Rogers is the coolest dude on PBS.
Please won't you be my neighbor?
So what do you think? Did you watch Arthur, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, or the crossover episode Arthur Meets Mr. Rogers Growing Up? Did you love them? Did you hate them? How would you have handled this situation? And what are some of your favorite kids shows growing up? Please, leave comments below and discuss. As always, thanks for tuning in to another video. If you like what you see, why not give my video a like and subscribe to my channel? Tell your friends! Until next time...
Did you understand all that talk about taxes?